The table in front of me was covered with all my favorite food. Creamy chicken pasta, garlic bread, roasted potatoes, grilled chicken, warm soup, fresh strawberries, and my favorite chocolate cake. Normally, I would have been overjoyed. Instead, I was sitting there with one hand pressed over my mouth, desperately trying not to throw up. Across from me sat my boss, Ethan Blackwood, my terrifyingly handsome alpha boss, who looked happier than I had ever seen him. He couldn't stop smiling. He couldn't stop staring at me. And he definitely couldn't stop talking about the 2 tiny heartbeats growing inside me. Yes. I was 23 years old. I was an Omega. I was 10 weeks pregnant. And I was carrying my alpha boss's twins. The strangest part? It had all started with a snowstorm. Months earlier, Ethan had invited our entire team to his private holiday house in the mountains to celebrate his birthday. The house was beautiful, large windows overlooking the snowy mountains, a huge fireplace, comfortable bedrooms, and enough food and supplies to make the place feel like a luxury resort hidden in the middle of nowhere. The birthday celebration had been wonderful. For once, everyone got to see a completely different side of Ethan. He laughed. He joked with the team. He even let us tease him about getting older. I tried my best not to stare at him too much. Because I had been secretly crushing on my boss for longer than I wanted to admit. He was everything I shouldn't have wanted. My boss. An alpha. Confident, successful, intimidating, and completely out of my league. So I kept my feelings hidden. The next morning, everyone started leaving. One colleague after another packed their bags and drove away. I didn't have a car, so Ethan had promised to take me home after the others left. But before we could leave, the weather suddenly changed. Snow began falling heavily. At first, we thought it would pass. It didn't. Within a few hours, the peaceful snowfall had turned into a terrifying snowstorm. The roads disappeared beneath thick layers of snow. The wind became violent. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. And eventually, the snow reached the windows of the house. We couldn't leave. Our car couldn't move. The roads were completely blocked. Then the power and communication systems began struggling. The phone signal disappeared. The internet went down. Suddenly, we were completely cut off from the outside world. I remember standing by one of the windows, staring at the wall of white outside. My heart was pounding. What are we going to do? Ethan came up behind me. We wait. I turned toward him. But what if it doesn't stop? It will. What if nobody can get here? Then we'll stay here until they can. I shook my head. I feel trapped. Ethan's expression softened. He placed both hands gently on my shoulders. Hey, look at me. I did. We have food, water, heating, emergency supplies, everything we need. But we're going to make it. His voice was calm and certain. You just need a little patience. I wanted to believe him. So I nodded. And Ethan spent the next few hours making sure I was comfortable. He cooked for me. He found the warmest clothes in the house and gave them to me. He made sure the fireplace stayed lit. Whenever I looked frightened, he reassured me. The house had enough supplies to survive for a long time, but knowing that didn't completely calm me. Because there was something else making me nervous. Ethan. I was trapped in a remote house with the man I had secretly been in love with for months. And now there was nowhere to hide my feelings. But Ethan never pressured me. Instead, he kept me company. We talked. At first, it was about silly things. Our favorite movies. Food. Work. Travel. Then the conversations became deeper. I finally told him about my childhood. I told him that I didn't know my parents. That I had grown up in an orphanage. That other children had treated me terribly because I was an Omega. I told him about the loneliness. The fear. The feeling that I had never really belonged anywhere. Ethan listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he told me about his own childhood. He had grown up surrounded by wealth. He had everything money could buy. But he rarely had his parents. They were always working. Always traveling. Always too busy. And Ethan admitted that he hadn't handled that loneliness well. As a teenager, he had become arrogant. Angry. Even cruel sometimes. He had bullied people because he didn't understand how to deal with his own pain. But as he grew older, he realized what he had become. So he changed. He worked on himself. He learned to take responsibility for his actions. And slowly, he became the man he was today. For the first time, I didn't see him as my cold, intimidating boss. I saw him as Ethan. Just Ethan. The first day passed. Then the second. Then the third. But the storm still didn't stop. By the fourth evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I was sitting beside the fireplace when I suddenly started crying. Why isn't it ending? Ethan immediately came toward me. I don't know. I just want to go home. I know. I'm scared. I know. My voice broke. I feel like we're never getting out of here. Ethan didn't try to argue with me. He simply pulled me into his arms. And I completely broke down. I clutched his shirt while he held me tightly. It's going to be okay, he whispered. I cried against his chest. You don't know that. No, he admitted softly. But I'll stay with you until it is. That was the moment something inside me changed. We stayed in each other's arms for a long time. Neither of us wanted to let go. And after that night, everything between us became different. We became inseparable. The remaining days blurred together. We talked. We laughed. We cooked together. We watched movies beside the fireplace. We slept close because the nights were freezing. And eventually, the feelings we had both been trying to ignore became impossible to deny. Our relationship turned romantic and intimate during those 10 days we remained snowbound. But what stayed with me most wasn't the intimacy. It was the way Ethan cared for me afterward. He made sure I ate. He brought me warm clothes. He checked whether I was comfortable. He never let me feel alone. Sometimes, he treated me so gently that I almost forgot he was the same alpha everyone at work was afraid of. Those 10 days changed everything. When the snow finally cleared enough for us to return to the city, Ethan and I made an unspoken agreement. We would pretend nothing had happened. Those 10 days in the mountains would remain a secret between us. At least, that was what we told ourselves. Back at the office, Ethan became my boss again, and I became his employee. We behaved professionally. We kept our conversations focused on work. We barely looked at each other. But pretending was much harder than either of us had expected. Because every time Ethan walked past my desk, my heart betrayed me. Every time our eyes met, I remembered the fireplace, his arms around me, and the way we had refused to let go of each other. And Ethan wasn't any better. I could feel his eyes following me whenever he thought I wasn't looking. Eventually, our carefully maintained distance collapsed. One evening, Ethan asked me to come into his office. I thought he wanted to discuss a project. Instead, the moment the door closed behind me, we just stood there. Neither of us spoke. Then Ethan stepped closer. I should have moved away. Instead, I looked into his eyes. And he kissed me. It was only supposed to be one kiss. A mistake. A moment of weakness. But the moment our lips touched, all the feelings we'd been trying to suppress came rushing back. After that, we stopped pretending. We continued seeing each other in secret. A kiss before he left for a meeting. A quiet moment together after everyone else had gone home. Stolen conversations in his office. Every time we promised ourselves it would be the last. And every time, we failed. Then one morning, everything changed. I stared at the pregnancy test in my hands. 2 lines. My heart stopped. I took another. Then another. All positive. I was pregnant. With Ethan's child. Actually, there were 2 babies. Twins. Instead of feeling only happiness, I felt terrified. I knew Ethan. Everyone knew Ethan. He was a billionaire alpha who had spent his entire adult life insisting that he didn't want marriage, children, or a family. What if he thought I'd done this deliberately? What if he thought I'd tried to trap him? That fear became even worse after I told my best friend, Lily. Lily worked with me and had known about Ethan and me from the beginning. When I told her I was pregnant, she stared at me for a moment before giving me a teasing grin. Do you realize what Ethan is going to think? My stomach twisted. What? He's going to think you baby trapped him. I went completely silent. Lily laughed. I'm kidding. But then she continued teasing. Still, think about it. He's a billionaire, and you're carrying his baby. Honestly, if someone wanted to trap a billionaire, Ethan would be a pretty good choice. Lily, I'm just saying. You're going to have the richest baby daddy imaginable. She was joking. I knew she was joking. But her words still hurt. Because they were exactly what I had been afraid Ethan would think. I broke down that night. And from that moment on, the pregnancy became something I was terrified to tell him about. Every time I tried, the words disappeared. I'd stand in front of Ethan with my heart pounding, ready to tell him. But when he looked at me, my courage vanished. So I began avoiding him. I stopped visiting his office. I avoided being alone with him. I stopped answering his messages. I even changed my routine at work just so I wouldn't run into him. Ethan noticed. Of course he did. One evening, I was leaving the office when I heard his voice behind me. Wait. I froze. He caught up with me. Why have you been avoiding me? I'm not. You are. I looked away. He studied my face. Did I do something wrong? No. Then what happened? I couldn't answer. He stepped closer. Talk to me. I tried to leave. Ethan, I need to go. But he gently caught my arm. Then he pulled me into his arms. I immediately stiffened. What happened? He whispered. I pushed against his chest. Ethan. Please. His voice sounded genuinely worried. Tell me what I did. You didn't do anything. Then why are you running away from me? I couldn't hold it in anymore. My hands were trembling. I'm pregnant. Ethan froze. I swallowed painfully. You're the father. His expression changed. I didn't do it intentionally, I rushed out. I swear. I wasn't trying to trap you. I didn't know this would happen. I never wanted you to think that I. My voice broke. I didn't baby trap you. Tears streamed down my face. I expected him to become angry. Instead, Ethan looked at me as though I'd just told him the most wonderful news in the world. He cupped my face. Why are you crying? I stared at him. You aren't angry? Angry? He looked genuinely confused. Why would I be angry? I thought you'd think I did it on purpose. Ethan shook his head. I know you didn't. But you're far too innocent to baby trap me. I blinked. He smiled softly. You couldn't even look me in the eyes when you were trying to tell me. You really think I believe you planned this? A tiny, broken laugh escaped me through my tears. Ethan wiped my cheeks. I'm not angry. He kissed my forehead. I'm not disappointed. Another kiss. I'm happy. I stared at him. Happy? The happiest I've ever been. His hand slowly moved to my stomach. Our baby? I hesitated. Babies. His eyes widened. Twins? I nodded. For a moment, he simply stared at me. Then his entire face lit up. Twins. He laughed softly, almost in disbelief. I had never seen Ethan look like that. But you always said you didn't want children. His expression softened. I lied. What? I told everyone I didn't want a family because I didn't want anyone asking questions. He looked directly into my eyes. The truth is, I never wanted a family with just anyone. His thumb brushed gently across my cheek. I wanted the right person. My breath caught. And I found him. My eyes filled with tears again. Ethan. I love you. He pulled me into his arms. And I can't wait to meet our babies. Then he suddenly lifted me into his arms. I gasped and instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck. Ethan. He laughed. You're pregnant. I'm allowed to carry you. He carried me into his private office and gently sat down on the sofa with me still in his arms. But the moment I felt his warmth, something strange happened. I couldn't stop myself from leaning toward his neck. I buried my face against him and breathed in his scent. Ethan chuckled softly. Are you smelling me? I don't know. I couldn't explain it. His alpha scent suddenly felt incredibly comforting. I pressed my face deeper against his neck. I just like your smell. His arms tightened around me. Then stay there. I didn't need to be told twice. I wrapped my arms around his neck and stayed curled against him. Ethan gently rubbed my back. You've been carrying all this fear alone. I nodded against his neck. I was scared you'd hate me. I could never hate you for this. He kissed the top of my head. You're carrying our babies. I held him tighter. Our babies. Exactly. He kissed my hair again. We're going to have a family. I lifted my head. You really want that? Ethan smiled. With you? More than anything. Then he pulled me close again, carrying me securely in his arms while I rested my face against his neck. For the first time since seeing those 2 lines on the pregnancy test, I finally felt safe. I wasn't trapped. Ethan wasn't angry. And neither of us was alone anymore. We were going to become a family. After I finally told Ethan about the pregnancy, he refused to let me go home alone. He took me straight to his mansion. I was only 7 weeks pregnant at the time, and everything still felt unreal. During the entire drive, Ethan kept one hand wrapped around mine. You don't have to worry anymore, he said quietly. I'll take care of you. I wanted to believe him. But when his mansion came into view, I couldn't help feeling nervous. It was enormous. Elegant. Nothing like the place I'd grown up in. I'd grown up with almost nothing. I'd never had expensive furniture, household staff, or people waiting to take care of my every need. Now I was standing inside the home of a billionaire alpha. I suddenly felt like I didn't belong. Ethan. He turned toward me. I don't know if I can stay here. His brows furrowed. Why? Because this is your world. I looked around the enormous entrance. I don't know how to live like this. I grew up with almost nothing. Ethan stepped closer and gently took my hands. Then don't worry about living like me. I looked at him. Just live with me. My heart softened. This isn't about money, he continued. I don't care where you came from or what you had growing up. He brushed his thumb over my cheek. I want you here because I love you. That was enough. All my hesitation disappeared. That evening, Ethan showed me around the mansion and made sure I had everything I needed. Before leaving, he kissed my forehead. I have some important work to finish. I'll be back soon. I nodded. Okay. He gave me another gentle kiss before leaving. I tried to keep myself occupied. I watched television, checked my phone, and eventually lay down to rest. But after a while, hunger began to bother me. I thought about calling someone for food. But every time I reached for my phone, I hesitated. I was still embarrassed about asking the household staff for anything. So I decided to wait until Ethan returned. Eventually, I fell asleep. Several hours later, the bedroom door opened. Ethan was finally back. He immediately walked over to me. "You're awake?" I nodded sleepily. Then I hesitated before quietly asking, "Ethan? Could I get something to eat?" His expression softened immediately. "Of course." He asked the staff to bring me something warm and easy to eat. A few minutes later, food arrived. Ethan stayed beside me while I tried to eat. But the moment I took a few bites, my stomach turned. I pushed the plate away. Ethan immediately noticed. "You don't like it?" "It's not that." I covered my mouth. "I just can't eat." He looked concerned. "Are you feeling sick?" I nodded. Then he gently moved the food aside. "Okay. Don't force yourself." He looked at me for a moment before asking, "Did you eat anything earlier?" I lowered my eyes. "No." Ethan's expression changed. "You didn't eat?" I shook my head. "Why?" I hesitated. I was embarrassed to ask the maids for food. He stared at me for a moment before gently taking my hand. "You have nothing to be embarrassed about." I looked up. "This is your home now." His voice was soft but firm. "If you're hungry, you ask for food. If you're tired, you rest. If you need anything, you tell someone." "But..." "No." He squeezed my hand. "You're not a guest here." His expression softened. "You're my Omega. You're carrying our twins. You never have to feel ashamed of asking for something as simple as food." My eyes began to sting. Ethan leaned closer and kissed my forehead. "Promise me you won't do that again." I nodded. "I promise." He smiled gently. Then he called the household staff. Within moments, several maids and members of the household staff gathered outside the room. Ethan stood beside me, holding my hand. "I want everyone to understand something." Everyone became quiet. "This is my Omega." My cheeks immediately became warm. "He is going to be my husband." The maids exchanged delighted smiles. "And he's carrying our twins." Their expressions immediately brightened. Ethan continued. "From now on, take care of him just as you would take care of me." Everyone nodded. "Make sure he has whatever he needs. Make sure he eats properly. And most importantly, never let him feel embarrassed about asking for something." "Yes, Alpha." The maids looked genuinely happy. I became so shy that I immediately buried my face against Ethan's chest. He chuckled and wrapped his arm around me. After everyone left, I looked up at him. "Ethan. Did you really mean what you said?" "About what?" "Me being your husband." He smiled. "Of course. You really want to marry me?" "I can't wait to." My cheeks became warm. "But, would you still marry me if I wasn't pregnant?" Ethan's expression softened. "I would have married you anyway." I stared at him. "Why?" Instead of answering, he walked to his desk and opened a drawer. He took out a small black diary and handed it to me. "Read this." I opened it. The first pages were dated from the days we'd spent trapped in the mountains. He had written about the snowstorm. Our conversations. The nights beside the fireplace. The little things I'd done that I hadn't even realized he'd noticed. Then I found the pages where he'd written about falling in love with me. He had noticed me long before the snowstorm. He had admired my kindness. My patience. The way I treated people. And those 10 days had made him realize that his feelings weren't temporary. He had fallen in love with me. My vision blurred. I slowly closed the diary. "You really loved me before all this?" Ethan stepped closer. "Yes. Even before the pregnancy?" "Especially before the pregnancy." The tears finally fell. Ethan immediately pulled me into his arms. "Why are you crying?" "I've never had anyone love me like this." He held me tighter. "You do now." I buried my face against his chest. He kissed my hair. "And I'm not going anywhere." From that day onward, Ethan took care of me like I was his entire universe. He made sure I ate. He remembered what foods I liked. He made sure I rested. He checked on me constantly. And whenever I started feeling like I didn't belong in his world, he reminded me that I wasn't a guest in his mansion. It was my home too. Because Ethan never treated me like someone who had come from less. He treated me like the most precious person in his life. His Omega. His future husband. And the person carrying his twins. For the first time in my life, I finally knew what it felt like to have a home. And that home was Ethan. For a while, I thought everything was finally going to settle down. Ethan had brought me into his home, introduced me as the person he loved, and made it clear that he wanted a future with me. But once we returned to the office, our private life suddenly became everyone's business. The news that I was Ethan's Omega and was carrying his twins spread quickly. At first, people congratulated me. Then the questions started. And they weren't normal questions. Some coworkers began asking things that made my face burn with embarrassment. So, how did you and Ethan actually get together? How long have you two been sleeping together? What's Ethan like in bed? I nearly choked. Another person laughed and asked, is he really as intense as people say? Someone else whispered, is he strong? Then came questions about money. Did Ethan give you a lot of money? Are you getting a new apartment? Did he buy you anything expensive? Are you basically set for life now? I didn't know where to look. These weren't questions I wanted to answer. They were asking about things that belonged between Ethan and me. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. That evening, I went straight to Ethan's private office. The moment I saw him, I walked over and wrapped my arms around him. He immediately hugged me back. What happened? I buried my face against his chest. I don't like them. Who? Everyone at the office. He gently rubbed my back. What did they do? I hesitated before telling him everything. They keep asking me about us. His expression became serious. What kind of questions? I told him. The questions about our private life. The questions about what he was like in bed. Whether he was strong. Whether he gave me money. Whether I'd gotten expensive gifts because I was carrying his children. By the time I finished, Ethan looked genuinely irritated. He pulled me closer. You don't have to answer any of those questions. I know. I tightened my arms around him. But I feel embarrassed. You have nothing to be embarrassed about. He kissed the top of my head. They're the ones crossing a boundary. I nodded against his chest. I just don't want everyone talking about us. They won't. I looked up at him. What are you going to do? He gave me a small smile. You'll see. The following day, Ethan called a company-wide meeting. Everyone gathered in the conference room. I stood beside him, nervous about what he was planning. Then Ethan reached for my hand. He held it firmly in front of everyone. The room immediately became silent. I've decided to make something clear, Ethan said. He looked around at the employees. Yes, we are together. A few people exchanged surprised looks. Ethan squeezed my hand. He is my Omega, and we're expecting twins. My heart began racing. Then Ethan looked at me. With his permission, I want everyone to know that we intend to get married after our babies are born. My face became hot. I looked at him, completely overwhelmed. He smiled at me before turning back to everyone. And from today onward, I expect everyone to respect his privacy. His voice became firm. His personal life is not office entertainment. Nobody spoke. You don't need to know what happens between us privately. He paused. You don't need to ask him about our relationship, our finances, our home, or anything else that doesn't concern your work. Everyone immediately nodded. Ethan's expression hardened slightly. And absolutely no more inappropriate questions. His voice left no room for argument. He's here to work. Treat him as you would any other employee. Then his expression softened as he looked at me. But remember that he is also the person I love and the future father of my children. My heart melted. He squeezed my hand again. Respect him. Everyone nodded. Yes, Alpha. After the meeting ended, Ethan didn't immediately let go of my hand. We walked back toward his office together. I looked at him shyly. You really told everyone? He smiled. You gave me permission. I did. Then they needed to hear it from me. I smiled. For the first time since the rumors had started, I felt like I could breathe again. Ethan had made one thing perfectly clear. Our relationship wasn't something he was ashamed of. He wasn't hiding me. And he certainly wasn't going to let anyone treat me like my private life was public property. I thought Ethan's announcement would finally put an end to the gossip. For the most part, it did. People stopped asking me uncomfortable questions, and everyone became much more careful around me. But Lily was different. She didn't seem happy about the announcement at all. Later that afternoon, she approached me when I was alone. Can we talk? I nodded. She led me somewhere quiet and looked around before speaking. I don't think you're doing the right thing. I frowned. What do you mean? Trusting Ethan this much. My heart sank. Lily, what are you talking about? She sighed. I'm saying this because you're my friend. I don't want to see you get hurt. I remained silent. You really believe Ethan is going to stay with you forever? Yes. My answer came immediately. I love him, and he loves me. Lily shook her head. You don't know that. Her words made me uncomfortable. He might be treating you well now because you're carrying his babies. But what happens after they're born? I stared at her. He'll leave you. What? He'll get what he wants, his pups, and then he'll move on. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Ethan isn't like that. How do you know? Because he told me. Lily gave me a sad smile. He's a billionaire alpha, and you're a young Omega who grew up with almost nothing. Do you really think your worlds are going to fit together forever? I didn't know how to respond. She continued softly. I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying it because you're my best friend. She took my hand. I don't think Ethan truly cares about an Omega like you. I think he's using this relationship because it's convenient for him. My chest tightened. But he said he loved me before I even became pregnant. Maybe that's what he wants you to believe. I shook my head. No. Lily sighed. Please, just be careful. I looked down. I didn't want to believe her. I couldn't. Because Ethan had shown me his diary. He had told me he'd fallen for me before the pregnancy. He had introduced me as his future husband in front of everyone. He had promised to marry me. Still, Lily's words frightened me. Then she said something that made me look up. Don't tell Ethan about this conversation. Why? Because he'll think I'm trying to come between you. She squeezed my hand. I'm only trying to protect you. If you tell him, he'll get angry, and then you'll stop listening to me. I hesitated. She looked at me seriously. Please, keep this between us. I slowly nodded. Okay. She gave me a small smile. Good. Just promise me you'll think carefully about everything. I nodded again. But as I walked away, my heart felt heavy. I knew Ethan loved me. At least, I believed he did. Yet Lily's words had planted a tiny seed of doubt inside me. What if she was right? What if Ethan really would leave after our twins were born? I immediately shook my head. No. I couldn't believe that. Not after everything Ethan had done for me. Not after the way he'd held me when I was afraid. Not after he'd told me he would have married me even if I hadn't been pregnant. But despite everything I believed about Ethan, Lily's warning stayed in the back of my mind. And I was terrified of what would happen if my worst fear ever came true. I knew I shouldn't have listened to Lily. Deep down, I knew it. But I'd never experienced love like Ethan's before. I'd never had someone look after me without expecting anything in return. I'd never had someone make me feel wanted, protected, and cherished the way he did. Ethan had given me something I'd spent my entire life believing I could never have. Love. And because I'd never experienced it before, I was terrified of losing it. So when Lily planted those doubts in my head, I couldn't simply brush them away. I started questioning things that had never bothered me before. If Ethan came home late, I'd wonder if he was getting tired of me. If he became busy with work, I'd wonder if he regretted choosing me. Sometimes, when he talked excitedly about our future, I'd smile while secretly wondering whether he'd still want that future once our twins were born. The changes were small at first. But Ethan noticed. I became quieter. I stopped being as affectionate. Sometimes I'd pull away when he tried to hug me. Are you okay? He'd ask. I'm just tired. He knew I wasn't telling him the truth. But he never forced me to talk. Then Lily told me something that made everything worse. She told me about Ethan's former girlfriend. According to Lily, the woman had once been pregnant with Ethan's child and had later suffered a miscarriage. And Lily claimed Ethan had left her afterward. The story terrified me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. What if something happened to my pregnancy? Would Ethan leave me too? Instead of asking him, I let my fear consume me. And that evening, when Ethan came home, I treated him terribly. He tried to kiss me. I turned away. He asked me how my day had been. I barely answered. Eventually, he looked at me with frustration. What is going on? Nothing. Stop saying that. His voice became sharper. You've been acting differently for days. I turned away. You don't care about me anyway. The moment those words left my mouth, Ethan froze. His eyes darkened. What did you say? My courage disappeared immediately. Tears filled my eyes. You think I don't care about you? His anger made me cry. Ethan stared at me for a moment before closing his eyes and taking a deep breath. Then his entire expression softened. I'm sorry. Before I could say anything, he walked over and lifted me into his arms. I instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck. He carried me to the couch and sat down, keeping me safely in his arms. Come here. I buried my face against his chest. He kissed my forehead. Then my cheek. I'm sorry I raised my voice. I cried quietly. Ethan held me for several moments before speaking again. Now tell me what happened. Nothing. He gently tilted my face toward him. I know you. His voice was soft. Something happened. I looked away. Please tell me the truth. I wanted to keep Lily's words to myself. I really did. But I couldn't. The fear had already grown too large. So I finally broke down. Lily told me something. Ethan's expression immediately changed. What did she tell you? I hesitated. Then I told him. Everything. What Lily had said about his ex. What she'd said about him leaving her. What she'd said about him only wanting his children. What she'd said about him eventually leaving me. And finally, I whispered, "Please don't leave me." Ethan became completely still. Then his expression hardened. He reached for his phone. "I'm calling her." "No." I grabbed his wrist. "Please don't." He looked at me. His jaw was tight with anger. Then he asked, "Did she also tell you not to tell me about the pregnancy?" I froze. His eyes narrowed. "Was she the one who convinced you that I'd accuse you of baby-trapping me?" I hesitated before slowly nodding. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. "And what else did she say?" I told him everything. Every single thing Lily had told me. By the time I finished, I was crying again. "I'm sorry." Ethan's anger was still visible, and it frightened me. "Please don't be angry with me." His expression softened immediately. "I'm not angry with you. But I didn't trust you. You were scared." He wiped my tears. "I wish you'd come to me sooner, but I'm not going to punish you for being afraid." Then he took my hand. "Now listen carefully." I looked at him. "The story about my ex is a lie." I blinked. "What?" "She didn't have a miscarriage." My heart stopped. "She cheated on me." I stared at him. "She became pregnant by the man she was cheating with." Ethan's voice remained calm. "When I found out, I ended the relationship." "But Lily said." "She lied to you." He shook his head. "I never left someone because she lost my child." He gently squeezed my hand. "She ended that pregnancy herself after everything came out." I couldn't believe it. "I can show you proof." Ethan opened his phone and showed me the messages and records he'd kept from that time. I read through them carefully. The truth was there. He hadn't abandoned a grieving woman. He had ended a relationship because he'd been betrayed. I felt tears forming again. Then Ethan showed me something else. Messages from Lily. I stared at the screen. She had been flirting with him. Repeatedly. Her messages were full of compliments and suggestive remarks, clearly trying to get his attention. Ethan had eventually blocked her. I couldn't believe it. She was trying to get close to me. He nodded. "I never encouraged her." I lowered my head. I'd trusted her completely. And she'd used that trust to make me afraid of the person I loved. Ethan gently lifted my chin. "Look at me." I did. "Never let someone else's words become a wall between us." His forehead rested against mine. "If you hear something about me that scares you, ask me." I nodded. "Don't keep it inside." He kissed my forehead. "Don't punish yourself with possibilities." Another soft kiss. "And don't ever be afraid to come to me." My tears finally spilled. "I'm sorry." "I know. I'm really sorry." Ethan pulled me into his arms. "I forgive you." I hugged him tightly. "I was so scared you would leave me." "I won't." He held me closer. "I love you." I pulled back and kissed his cheek. "Forgive me." He smiled. "Already forgiven." I kissed his forehead. Then I wrapped my arms around him again. For a long time, we simply stayed like that. The misunderstanding had hurt. The doubt had created distance between us. But in the end, it taught us something we both needed to learn. If something frightened us, we couldn't let silence turn it into a bigger problem. We had to talk. We had to trust each other. And most importantly, we had to protect what we had from the voices of people who didn't belong inside our relationship. The next morning, Ethan found me sitting quietly at the breakfast table. He took the seat beside me and reached for my hand. "We need to talk to Lily today." My stomach tightened. I knew exactly what he meant. After everything she'd said and done, I couldn't pretend she was still the friend I'd believed her to be. I'd trusted her with everything. Instead, she'd used that trust to frighten me, turn me against Ethan, and secretly try to get closer to him herself. I lowered my eyes. "Okay." Ethan squeezed my hand. "You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to argue with her. I'll handle it." I nodded. Later that morning, Ethan called a meeting at the office. Everyone gathered in the main conference room. When Lily walked in, she immediately noticed me standing beside Ethan. Her expression changed. "What is this about?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. He held my hand and looked at her coldly. "Lily, we're going to discuss what you've been telling my mate." She immediately shook her head. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You lied to him about my past." "I didn't lie." She looked at me. "I was trying to protect you." I remained silent. Ethan's expression hardened. "You told him I would abandon him after our children were born." I was only looking out for him. You told him I didn't care about him. I thought. You also told him not to tell me about his pregnancy. Lily's face went pale. I was worried. No. Ethan's voice was quiet. You were trying to make him afraid of me. Lily's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. She suddenly raised her voice. I've spent years trying to get you. The room went silent. I did everything. She pointed at herself. I'm beautiful. I come from a good family. I'm educated. I've always been someone people wanted. Her voice broke. And what did I get? She turned toward me. You chose him. I felt my chest tighten. Lily continued. He's a man. Several people exchanged uncomfortable looks. He isn't even the most handsome Omega. My eyes filled with tears. He doesn't have a family. He barely had anything growing up. She looked at Ethan as if demanding an explanation. And somehow, he gets you? I couldn't stop the tears anymore. Then Lily noticed the watch on my wrist. Her expression changed. She pointed toward it. That watch. Everyone looked at my wrist. The limited edition one you gave him? Ethan's expression became colder. Lily laughed bitterly. Does someone like him really deserve something like that? I lowered my head. The words hurt more than I wanted to admit. Not because of the watch. Because I genuinely considered Lily my friend. I'd trusted her. I'd defended her. And now she was standing in front of everyone, telling me that I didn't deserve the life I'd found with Ethan. I felt Ethan's arms suddenly wrap around me. He pulled me firmly against his chest. I buried my face against him. One of his hands gently stroked my hair while the other rubbed my back. He didn't say anything. But I could feel how angry he was. Lily wasn't finished. He's going to destroy you. She shouted. He's going to ruin your reputation. Then she pointed directly at me. He's a zero. ENOUGH. Ethan's voice thundered through the room. Everyone fell silent. He looked at Lily with an expression so cold that even she seemed frightened. You've said enough. Lily swallowed. Ethan. What kind of person humiliates someone they once called a friend because they're jealous? I was only selfish. His voice cut through hers. That's what you are. Lily stared at him. You don't care about him. You never did. Ethan tightened his arms around me. You wanted me. She didn't answer. And when you realized I had chosen someone else, you decided to destroy his confidence so you could make him doubt me. Tears rolled down Lily's face. That's not true. It is. He looked directly at her. You tried to convince my mate that I would abandon him. His voice became colder. You tried to convince him that our relationship was nothing but convenience. He paused. And you did it because you couldn't accept that I chose him. Lily shook her head. But I've worked so hard to become someone worthy of you. Ethan's expression didn't change. You could spend your entire life trying. He glanced at me. It wouldn't matter. Then he looked back at her. Because I love him. The room became completely silent. Everything I have, he will have. Lily stared at him. My home. He squeezed my hand. My wealth. His arm tightened around me. My future. He looked directly at her. Because he's my mate. Lily's face crumbled. Ethan, please. You should have thought about that before hurting him. He turned toward his assistant. Terminate her employment. Lily's eyes widened. No. She immediately stepped forward. Please, Ethan. The assistant moved toward her. I made a mistake. Ethan didn't respond. I'll apologize. Nothing. She turned toward me. Please. I was jealous, okay? I was angry. I couldn't answer. Please forgive me. I remained silent. She tried to approach me, but Ethan stepped between us. Don't. His voice was dangerously calm. Lily stopped. I won't allow you to hurt him again. She began crying harder. You can't throw away my career. Ethan looked at her without sympathy. You threw away your place here the moment you decided hurting my mate was worth getting what you wanted. The assistant escorted her toward the door. She continued protesting. She apologized. She begged. She tried to convince me to forgive her. But nothing worked. Eventually, the doors closed behind her. The room became silent again. Ethan didn't immediately let go of me. He kept me against his chest, gently stroking my hair. I whispered. I really thought she was my friend. I know. He kissed the top of my head. Sometimes the hardest part isn't losing someone. I looked up at him. It's realizing they were never who you thought they were. My eyes filled with tears again. Ethan wiped them away. Don't listen to anything she said about you. I nodded. You are not a zero. He kissed my forehead. You are not less worthy because you didn't grow up with money. Another kiss. And you don't have to look like anyone else to deserve love. He held me tighter. You are my mate. His voice softened. My Omega. He rested his forehead against mine. The person I chose. I finally wrapped my arms around him. And standing there in front of everyone, I realized something. Lily had tried to make me believe I wasn't worthy of Ethan. But Ethan had never once made me feel that way. He had chosen me when he didn't have to. He had loved me before the pregnancy. And no matter how many people tried to convince me otherwise, his actions had already given me the answer. I was loved. I was wanted. And I belonged with him. After Lily was gone, the tension that had surrounded us finally disappeared. And as the days passed, life became softer. Happier. Somehow, Ethan and I became even more obsessed with each other. We were always together. If he was working in his office, I would eventually wander in just to sit beside him. If I was resting upstairs, Ethan would find an excuse to check on me. Sometimes he'd simply sit beside me, hold my hand, and continue working while I watched him. He took care of me like I was something precious. He never let me carry anything heavy. He made sure I ate on time, reminded me to take enough rest, and constantly asked whether I was comfortable. And at night, when everything became quiet, we'd talk about our future. Our children. Our home. The kind of parents we wanted to be. We'll never make them feel alone, I told him one night. Ethan kissed my forehead. Never. We'll listen to them. Even when they're being annoying? I laughed. Especially then. He smiled. Sometimes we'd imagine them growing up together, running through the mansion, fighting over toys, calling us when they needed something. Those conversations made me incredibly happy. Then, before we knew it, 39 weeks had passed. And our twin boys decided they were ready to meet us. The delivery was nothing like I had imagined. It was long, exhausting, and incredibly painful. The intensity of the delivery left me with a serious injury, and afterward, even the strongest pain medication barely touched the pain. For 3 days, I cried constantly. I couldn't sit comfortably. I couldn't properly hold my babies. I couldn't even feed them. And that broke my heart more than anything. Our sons were finally here, yet I couldn't do the simplest things I'd dreamed of doing. Ethan never left my side. His parents took care of the babies while he stayed with me. Go see them, I whispered one time. He shook his head. They're your children too. You should be with them. I'll see them later. Ethan. He took my hand. I'm staying with you. I looked at him through my tears. But they're your babies. And you're my mate. His voice softened. You're the one who's hurting. I started crying again. He pulled me carefully into his arms. I don't care how long it takes. I'm staying right here. Then, during one particularly painful moment, I completely broke down. I don't think I can do this anymore. Ethan held me tightly. You don't have to do anything. I'm hurting so much. I know. He kissed my forehead. I'm here. I looked at him. His eyes were already filled with tears. I'll never let you go through this again. I frowned. What? We're done. He gently wiped my tears. No more pregnancies. Ethan. I mean it. His voice trembled. I don't want another child if having one means watching you suffer like this. I had never seen him cry before. But that night, while he held me through my pain, tears slipped down his cheeks. I love our babies, he whispered. But I can't love having children more than I love you. I reached for his hand. And he held mine until the pain finally eased. Over the following days, my body slowly began to heal. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but little by little, I became stronger. And eventually, the moment I'd been waiting for finally came. I was able to hold our babies. When they were placed in my arms, I immediately started crying. They were so tiny. 2 little boys. Our sons. I stared at their faces, completely overwhelmed. Then I looked at Ethan. He was sitting beside me, watching us. But something caught my attention. He seemed hesitant to get too close to the babies. Instead, he kept one arm around me. I smiled. Ethan. He looked at me. Come here. He moved closer. I carefully held our boys against my chest. Look at them. Ethan looked down. His eyes immediately became glassy. They're beautiful. They are. I smiled. Then I whispered. And you know what? What? The pain doesn't matter anymore. He looked at me. I glanced down at our sons. Not when I look at them. Ethan's eyes filled with tears again. I'd go through all of it again if it meant having them. He shook his head immediately. No. I laughed softly. Every parent goes through some kind of pain to have beautiful children. He didn't answer. He simply stared at the babies for a moment. Then he leaned forward and wrapped both arms around all 3 of us. His face rested against my hair. And for the first time, we were truly together as a family. The 4 of us. When we finally returned home, Ethan became almost impossible. He wouldn't let me do anything. I couldn't carry a glass. I couldn't lift anything. I couldn't even reach for something on a shelf without him appearing beside me. Ethan, I'm fine. I know. Then why are you following me? Because I want to. I laughed. He took care of me even more carefully than before. Sometimes I teased him. You care about me more than the babies. He looked at me. Then looked toward our sleeping sons. Then back at me. Maybe a little. I burst out laughing. Ethan. He shrugged. I warned you. One evening, while he was helping me settle comfortably on the couch, I decided to tease him. Maybe someday I'll want another baby. He froze. Slowly, he turned his head toward me. The expression on his face was so serious that I couldn't stop laughing. No. I laughed harder. Ethan. Absolutely not. He walked over and lifted me carefully into his arms. We are never doing that again. I wrapped my arms around his neck. What if I really want another baby? Then we'll adopt. I blinked. Adopt? He nodded. Someday, maybe we'll adopt a little girl. My heart melted. A daughter? A daughter. He kissed my forehead. But you're never going through another pregnancy. I smiled. You're really serious about that? Completely. He looked into my eyes. I love our boys more than anything in this world. Then he smiled. But I love my big baby just a little more. I laughed and buried my face against his neck. Ethan. He held me closer. You suffered enough for our family. His voice became softer. Now it's my turn to spend the rest of my life taking care of you. I hugged him tightly. And as I listened to the quiet sounds of our baby sleeping nearby, I realized something. I had once been terrified that Ethan would leave me. I had once believed I wasn't worthy of someone like him. But now I was standing in his arms, surrounded by everything we'd built together. Our home. Our sons. Our love. And maybe, someday, a little daughter we'd choose together. But for now, we were enough. The alpha who had once seemed completely out of my reach had become my husband, my safe place, and the father of my children. And I had become his entire world. Just as he had become mine.